Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Football Gods is the podcast where we give celebrity fans ultimate power over the beautiful game.
You can hear Ian Brodie choose his ultimate football anthem.
I think You'll Never Walk Alone, which is a song about community, being together. I don't think you could have a better song.
And understand, above all else, what annoys Nader Manuelha.
The player who solely plays for themselves, but from the outside is perceived as being great to the team. Like, some of these guys are the most toxic people you could ever wish to play with.
Search the Football Gods wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC on a Friday before a weekend where Liverpool take on Burnley to retain their place at the top of the Premier League. The Reds go into the weekend 2 points clear with what you would have to say is a favourable game. Burnley are, well, they're dreadful, let's be fair. They're genuinely dreadful. They sit second bottom in the league with 13 points, and the only reason they're not rock bottom is because Sheffield United happen to be even worse. They're 6 points behind Everton, who had a 10-point points deduction. They're 7 points behind Luton, who have a game less played. They're 8 points behind Forest. Like, things are looking very grim for Burnley. They've won 3 times all season. But they do have some really talented players. And in 2 years, they might have quite a good team if they keep these players together and develop them and add a couple more pieces. If they add a goal scorer and they add another centre-back, and they could probably use a left-back and maybe one in midfield. And if all those players come in and do well, and the players they have there at the moment, like Odebert and Kolioshu and Ramsey and people like that, if they all develop well, then in 2 years, that could be quite a decent team. Like, that could be a team that gets 12th in the Premier League, which for Burnley would be good. Obviously, Dyche had them in the top half a couple of seasons, but that was playing the Sean Dyche style of football. I'm talking about playing the way they're playing now. They could be a team that, you know, we all look at and go, oh, you know, they're an admirable team. They play the right way. They've got exciting players. Maybe a couple of players that we might like to take a look at. But for now, they're dreadful. And it's an opportunity for Liverpool going into this weekend to keep themselves on top of the Premier League. And that's the aim. Let's just stay top of the Premier League. I mean, it's very simple. If we just stay top of the Premier League, we'll win the league. So let's do that. That seems like a good plan. This weekend in the league, obviously, City play before us. They play Everton at home. So by the time we play, in all likelihood, City are top. But if we win, we go back top. We reopen the 5-point gap on Arsenal and we put pressure on them ahead of their trip to West Ham. And West Ham beat Arsenal only a few weeks ago. And that was a West Ham team missing a couple of players. And Arsenal may well be missing a couple of players this weekend. They might not have Saka. They might not have Zinchenko. Whereas West Ham might have some players back. So potentially the Hammers can take something, do us a little favour, take some points off Arsenal, and just get it back to how it should be. Just us and City, toe-to-toe, going for the title, and Arsenal doing what they do, which is, getting that nice fourth place trophy that Arsene Wenger was so proud to get every year. What else is going on? I've just obviously been sick for a week now, so not been very active, but seen bits and bobs. Saw today James Jimbo Pearce say that Xabi Alonso is the clear front runner for the Liverpool job. This is the same James Jimbo Pearce that knew absolutely nothing about Jurgen Klopp deciding to leave. So, not to single out James, but what I would say is that nobody knows anything. This is what we know about Liverpool's managerial hunt. Okay, and this is all we know. Nobody knows anything. You think a club that was able to keep from the world's media the news that one of the best managers in the world was going to leave one of the biggest clubs in the world for 3 months is now suddenly operating an open door policy where everyone and anyone has the inside track on who Liverpool want and what they're doing? Not a chance. Not a chance. Nobody knows who our next sporting director is going to be, outside of a very tight group of people that will include Mike Gordon, Billy Hogan, probably Will Spearman, Theo Epstein, and anyone else that's consulting with them. No one else knows. There's maybe 6 people in the world who know who the likely next sporting director is. And the same goes for the manager. Nobody knows. So when you hear people say, oh, it's Alonso, they're hedging their bets. Alonso is the sort of obvious pick because he's Xabi Alonso and he plays for us and he's having a tremendous season with Bayer Leverkusen. And if it turns out to be him, which is a possibility, obviously, then they can just go, oh, look, I called it right. Because that's how spoofers operate. It's also how journalists operate. They gamble on stuff all the time. And why do they do it? Because they know no one calls them out when they don't. And if they do call them out, the people that pay their wages don't call them out. Like, if journalists' continued employment was dependent on them getting stories right, there'd be about 3 journalists left in the entirety of the UK football scene. Mike McGrath, John Percy, and David Ornstein. And that'd be it. Because all the rest of them are wrong all the time. But no one calls them out on it, ever. Like, you've got newspapers like The Star and The Mirror who are full of journalists who've never gotten anything right in their life. There's one notable imbecile that works for the Daily Mirror, who I won't name. But at one point there was a subreddit dedicated to the stuff he'd gotten wrong over about an 8-year period. There was that much of it that a subreddit was created. And someone decided, as a joke, to create another subreddit with stuff he'd gotten right. And the only post in that subreddit was to introduce the subreddit, because he never got anything right. Every one of his transfer stories turned out to be nonsense. Every one of his manager getting sacked or manager getting hired stories turned out to be nonsense. That was a decade ago. And he's still employed. And he's still wrong about everything. So when journalists or spoofers or whoever say this is what's happening, they don't know. Because nobody is telling them. Because nobody knows. Will Spearman, as has been reported, is heavily involved in the search for the new manager. And he'll probably be involved in the search for sporting director as well. Will Spearman is not telling anybody in the media anything. Neither's Mike Gordon, neither's Bill Hogan. Neither's Theo Epstein. They're not telling anybody. Neither's John Henry. They're not telling anybody anything. They're going about the search the right way. They're doing their due diligence. Will they put feelers out? Yeah, but they'll put feelers out to 4 or 5 managers. They're not just going to go, we've decided it's Alonso, let's go all in, and let's only contact him. They're just not going to do that. Even if they decide he is the right choice, they'll still go down the road with others. Because in 2015, they knew it was going to be Klopp. They knew it was going to be Klopp. Part of why they sacked Rodgers was that they knew Klopp was ready to go. They still went and had multiple sit-downs with Carlo Ancelotti, including a public sit-down that people saw. Because they don't want to make it clear what they're doing. And they don't want the embarrassment of something falls apart last minute and now they're left cap in hand having to scramble, and the next guy they approach is like, oh, so I'm second choice then. Now, look, most managers would still take Liverpool as a job, even if they knew they were second choice. But some wouldn't. Some would get the hump over it. As I've said before, I don't believe Alonso's the best choice for the job. I think there's at least 2 who I would have above him. I've gone off the idea of De Zerbi a little bit, just looking more and more at the defensive side of things and whether his football is sustainable or not for a club to win at the highest level. But I still do go back to the idea that if you put Virgil, Ibu and Alisson into that Brighton team, I still do think that's a top 4 team. And then if you add in Trent, Alexis, Dominic, Salah, then it's probably a title contending team. So there is definitely a path where he can be successful. The one thing he would need to not do at Liverpool is what has held him back at Brighton, especially this season, is being too reliant on dross. He plays a lot of dross there. Some of it is our old dross, who were dross when we had them. Some of them are ex-United Arsenal dross. And one of them was the backup goalkeeper at Sunderland when they were in the Championship. So, you know, he needs to focus in on, you know, playing his better players. And when he does that, they get results. So he would be a 4th option. And there's probably somebody else. There's probably a name that has been given strong consideration that hasn't leaked, that nobody's even, you know, I mean, Nagelsmann's one that's mentioned. Like I've said before, he's got the Euros. I just don't see that we'll wait for him. And his reputation came out of Bayern in tatters. In tatters. For his man management, for his poor communication, and for just his general personality and behaviour. He didn't seem to win a lot of admirers with that type of stuff at Bayern. Now, part of that is just it's Bayern and it's a weird, kind of different club. But part of it is he's a young guy. Like, he's a very young guy. He didn't have huge exposure to fame and success because he wasn't a player. He did well at Hoffenheim, obviously very, very well. And I did quite rate him coming out of Hoffenheim. I thought he underachieved at Leipzig, and then the Bayern thing just didn't go well at all. But the thing for me is, like,
freedom is all about choices, and while there is only one Jeep brand, you have the freedom to choose from an epic lineup of Jeep brand vehicles. Hit the trails with the versatile Classic, the Jeep Gladiator, or experience the wild and style with the sophistication and comfort of the Jeep Grand Cherokee or Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. Looking for a more immersive experience? Let nature come to you in the open-air Jeep Wrangler or Jeep Wrangler 4xE, America's best-selling plug-in hybrid. Whatever you choose, adventure is just one drive away. Visit Jeep.com for details. Based on 2022 CYQ4 sales, JD Power retail sales data. Jeep is a registered trademark.
True or false? Hats make you go bald. This is actually false. Maybe still skip the fedora, though. Hair loss is a genetic condition that affects 2 out of 3 men by the age of 35. Those aren't great odds. But the good news is that Keeps can help with expert, personalized care and science-backed treatments that are up to 90% effective at reducing hair loss. All without leaving the house, delivered straight to your door. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/podcast. That's KEEPS.com/podcast.
I don't want someone whose last club job was failing at Bayern. I want someone who's coming off a high, who's coming off a job well done. So that could be Alonso, could be Amorim, it could be De Zerbi. I mean, Zidane's last job was Real. He won a league title there. Second time around, he won 3 European Cups the first time around. He'd be coming off a high. I don't want someone who's coming off a bad experience and doesn't have a prior track record. Like, if they just turned around, and I know most people don't like this, they turned around and appointed Antonio Conte, even though it didn't work out at Spurs for him. I can still look at 3 league titles with Juve, huge success there. League title with Chelsea against Klopp and Pep Guardiola, and a league title with Inter Milan. I can still look at that. I can still look at 5 legitimate league titles. 3 jobs really well done. And people say, oh, well, Nagelsmann won a Bundesliga. You could win a Bundesliga with Bayern. Like, every manager has won a Bundesliga with Bayern. Niko Kovac won the Bundesliga with Bayern. He was dreadful. So, you know, Thomas Tuchel's time at Bayern has not gone well. He won the Bundesliga last year. He may well win it again this year. I still wouldn't mark Bayern down as being successful for Tuchel. It's only really successful. If you're a Bayern manager, unless you win the Champions League, you haven't really been a success. That's the general rule of thumb. Which means that Hitzfeld, Heinkes and Flick are the only really successful Bayern managers in the last 25 years. Well, more than that. But that's just how it is with them. Like, that's how it should be for them. That league is a procession. Anyway, the greater point was, yes, Alonso is likely a candidate. He may well be the preferred candidate. But I keep going back to the reporting that they're taking, a heavy analytics-based view of this. And they're removing the emotion. And that, to me, would suggest that Alonso is not the surefire, clear-cut favourite that some people are making him out to be. Because the data won't back him up because there's not enough. But it is fun to think what we'd look like under Xavi. Like, it is. Ali in goal. Ibu right side centre-back. Virgil is the middle centre-back. We'd need that left-footed left side centre-back. Trent as the right wing-back, playing the same way Grimaldo plays the left wing-back role for Bayer, where he inverts into midfield to form a 3 at times. Other times he plays high and wide as like a proper winger and takes advantage of his crossing. Now, Alonso would mix things up a little bit for him, you'd imagine, and make more use of Trent's passing, which is on a vastly different level to Alex Grimaldo, as good as Grimaldo is. We'd need then a left-sided Frimpong. So, someone like, just as an example, an Alphonso Davies. That kind of roadrunner, speed demon, left-sided player. Purvis Estupiñán might work. I was thinking Alejandro Balde of Barca, given their financial problems, but as Marty Loughran pointed out, coming off that kind of surgery, a hamstring tendon, you probably want to see evidence that he can get back to where he was and go a prolonged period without picking up more muscle injuries. Because Tariq Lamptey had the same surgery and he's never been the same. Estupiñán would work really well, though. Really, really well. Nuno Mendes would be another great option. In the midfield, Alexis as the Xhaka. Perfect. As that metronome. That's absolutely ideal. So you're looking for a Palacios type to go in next to him. Zubimendi makes a lot of sense. He's actually he's a better player than Palacios. He's a better passer. And Xavi's had him before. Xavi's one that was massively responsible for his development when he was Real Sociedad B's manager. And he had Zubimendi there for a year. And he changed some things in his game. And Zubimendi's been outstanding since. So could we go and get him? That would make a lot of sense. Curtis then rotating with the two of them. Endo as your situational ball winner when you need more physicality in there. And then you can drip feed Bajcetic into that mix and drip feed Bobby Clark into that mix and develop them slowly, bring them along carefully. Potentially, Bobby Clark might go on loan next year, but he could fit into that midfield pairing because it's protected as well. So the one little concern I'd have about Alexis and Zubi is a lack of mobility. But in a 3-4 defensive shape, it should be fine. But if you had those two plus Curtis as your three starters for two positions, that'd be really, really strong. And likewise at the back, you'd have three centre-backs plus Joe Gomez. So you'd really have four starter quality centre-backs. Then you'd have a young one in Jarrell Quansah and maybe a second young one in Luke Chambers. Because remember, Leverkusen were interested in getting him in the summer, predominantly to play as the left side centre-back for them. Not as a starter, but as a squad player. So maybe Alonso would look at it and go, okay, well, I've got Ibu, Virgil, and let's just say Piero Hincapié, because he has him at Leverkusen. So let's just say it's him. That's my starting three. And then I've got Gomez, Quansah, and Chambers. But Gomez is going to be the first one in. If any of the three are missing, Gomez comes in. So if it's Ibu who's out, Joe starts right side. If it's Virgil who's out, Joe could start in that middle role, or Ibu could move into the middle role. And if it's Hincapié, it's out, Joe starts again. But then I still have the two young players as well for depth. So that's that. Connor Bradley obviously back up to Trent. Robbo back up on the left. So that's perfect. Just been over the midfield. That's great. Behind Ali, if Kelleher stays, which I don't think he will, I don't think he should, you'd have Kelleher. But if he goes, you could go and get someone on the cheap for a couple of years while you continue to develop Pitaluga and the other young goalkeepers of the club. That wouldn't be somewhere where we're spending money. The Kelleher sale would more than cover the incoming. So that's goalkeeper simple to deal with. That'd be 4 signings needed. We don't need to do anything in attack. The 2-1 up front, Salah and Szoboszlai behind Darwin. And your depth is Elliott and Gakpo behind Jota. And Luis Diaz is sort of the odd one out. But Luis Diaz might well leave in the summer anyway. And if Luis Diaz goes, the fee for him, because I think he'd be willing to go to Saudi personally, the fee for him would more than cover, let's say, Zubamendi. So now all you need in the fund is the left centre-back. Hincapié be 55 to 60, and a left-back, and let's say it's a Stupinan, and let's say it's about the same price. It's about 110 million. The other odd one out then is Gravenberg. Doesn't really fit anywhere in that setup. Can't play in a double pivot at all. Maybe you loan him, get him games somewhere, and hope that he gets just back on track. Maybe if Linders gets a job somewhere, a decent job, you loan him to him and let him develop him for a year and see what you have. Fabio Carvalho does fit as one of the two behind, but does his face fit at the club? I don't know. Add Tyler Morton into that potential midfield mix, or again, he could be a player that's sold because he will have decent value this summer. But if you sold Carvalho and Morton, that's probably another 30 million. So now you're down to an 80 million net spend to have a genuinely outstanding squad. It's all very doable under Xabi, and that would be a very fun team. Like a very, very fun team. Ian Matson's another one to consider at that left wing back spot. He's not as rapid, but he is really, really good. And Chelsea are desperate to sell. Harvey Vale, also of Chelsea, he's one I'd like us to consider for that role. If Newcastle obviously got Lewis Hall on a loan with an obligation to buy from Chelsea. But apparently that obligation is based on a couple of factors, one of which is appearances. And he doesn't play a whole lot for Newcastle. So I wonder if there's any possibility that that deal doesn't go through. Would it be possible for us to jump in and grab him? Because I think he's exceptional. Genuinely, I think he is exceptional. I would have serious interest in us getting Lewis Hall if it was at all possible. He's still only 19. He doesn't turn 20 until September. And you look at him, how many minutes has he played this year? 104 minutes in the league. 104 minutes in the league, 45 in the Champions League, 119 in the EFL Cup. Didn't play in the FA Cup for them. 268 minutes so far this season. Like, there has to be a reason he's playing so little. And it's not because he's not good enough, because he's really, really good. I wonder, are Newcastle not using him because they don't want to make that deal permanent? Because if he became available, he would be brilliant for us in that left wing back role. It'd almost be like having two Trents in a lot of ways. Because he could play that inverted role. He's a really good passer. And he can play high and wide. Again, not the quickest. He's not slow by any means, but he's not like an Alphonso Davies type of sprinter, but he could be great for us in that role. If you could jump in and get him for 35 million, him and Capier and Zubamendi. I mean, I only said Diaz to go because he's kind of an odd one out, but if he's happy to stay, then you keep him, obviously. You have all the options. If Gravenberg is happy to stay and just be a squad player, great. More options. Costas, I think, will probably go. But, you know, for bringing in a new left back, it probably makes sense. I'm just refusing to acknowledge the Thiago news. So if you're wondering why I haven't mentioned it, that's why. On AnfieldIndex.com, we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. Plenty of podcasts on the way. Couple out, obviously. And there are some articles. So there is a piece about Micah Richards talking about Harvey Elliott, a piece about Anfield and the 100 million revamp. There is a piece about Trent and how he stepped up. Oh, no, it's not. It's about Trent saying how Conor Bradley has stepped up. There's a piece about the injury issues. Micah Richards playing with Mo Salah at Fiorentina remains hilarious to me. Podcast-wise, there is Arrival Recon, which is out now. There is the new Stat Me Up pod with Dave Davis and Ben Boxic. There is the new Scouted with myself and Carl. There's Under Pressure, if you haven't heard it yet. And myself and Dave are going to record a series of things today. So those will be out. And what else do we have? There is a Minefield on its way. There is a post-press conference pod, which should be out probably around the time you've heard this. And there will be new Scouts or Tommies as well. So do make sure to give all of those a listen. And I will see you Monday. I'll be on Raw tomorrow, but I'll see you Monday on this. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Oh, before I go, Guy, I hope you haven't cut this off. Before I go, myself and Trav will be recording episode 4 of our walkthrough on True Detective season 4 for Buzz later this evening. Now, he's under the weather, so we're going to get through it as best we can. And that'll be out as well over the weekend. So please do give that a listen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
When Cynthia came to TurboTax, she had just launched her new side gig, a true crime podcast.
I'm a first-rate detective with a golden voice.
As her TurboTax expert, I made her second income count by guaranteeing 100% accurate filing and her maximum refund.
What did she do with that refund? Find out next week.
Switch to Intuit TurboTax and make your moves count. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Experts only available with TurboTax Live.